Thank you for tuning in to the Cannabis Currency podcast, sponsored by publiclytradedpodcasts.com. Cannabis Currency provides companies an outlet to share valuable information with a focus on CBD, hemp, and cannabis markets. From testing laboratories to full-scale hemp farming, agricultural, nutraceutical, and pharmaceutical development and production, ancillary businesses and consultants, medicinal and recreational dispensaries, oils, edibles, infused beverages, and more. Cannabis Currency brings to the forefront publicly traded companies on the cutting edge to help heighten your awareness in an ever-expanding market. Here's your host, Marcus Heatherly.
On today's episode of Cannabis Currency, we're excited to spotlight Trutrace Technologies Inc. They trade on the CSC under the ticker symbol TTT, and in the States on the OTC QB under the ticker symbol TTTSF. Trutrace is a full-service software company that builds technology to move and track products around the world. With the launch of its premier product, StrainSecure, Trutrace has developed the first integrated blockchain platform that registers and tracks cannabis intellectual property from genome to sale. With us today, we're excited to have their CEO, Robert Galarza. Mr. Galarza, welcome to Cannabis Currency.
Thank you for having me this morning.
For those that don't know about Mr. Galarza's background, he has over 10 years of experience in advertising and mass media communications and over 7 years of experience as a corporate transactional attorney. Most recently, he spent time focused on mobile platform development, software as a service solutions, and blockchain integration. Mr. Galarza, if you could, please tell myself and the Cannabis Currency listeners a little bit about your personal business background and Trutrace Technologies Inc.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's funny. People always ask the question when you're in this industry, right? How did you get into cannabis? Right? there's a couple of different directions you always tell. People you always hear. You always hear the folks that go, "How much can I tell?" And those that say, "How much am how new am I to it, and how long do I want to say I've been in this business?" So, my background, I've kind of a unique background. I've had a multitude of careers initially in advertising, and then I went to law school in my mid-20s. As you stated, became a lawyer. Did the corporate law game for a couple of years. Wasn't really my thing. Boy, I respect the heck out of those guys, but wasn't really anything I could really, wake up and want to do every day for the rest of my life. So I ended up transitioning in and around the entertainment law industry. Had a lot of fun. Made a couple of movies and produced some film festival, and actually had some professional athletes as clients, and had a great time. But I was always striving for something bigger, and I was always striving for something where I could really sink my teeth into being a part of the building of something special. And technology was something that I got introduced to initially, even in the entertainment industry, around like video platform distribution, integrating into social media like Twitter and Instagram. And this was before Instagram stories or all the Snapchat or any of that stuff was really unfolding. So very early, I got involved in a couple of initiatives. They moved along, but then I found out also they didn't move fast enough. And it's always having the right technology partners, right? And so great guys, great initiatives, but just they never really came to pass as a result. And that's when I got introduced to my partner, Tommy, about 7-8 years ago. We both grew up in Southern California, about 45 minutes from each other, obviously never knew each other until, we're in our 30s. We met, hit it off, just eye-to-eye. Tommy's background was 20 years of enterprise software development out of Seattle for Fortune 500 companies. So built some insane systems for Microsoft, Mercedes-Benz, YouTube, you name it. And then I, at the time, was doing some stuff with one of my former clients, Rampage Jackson. We were doing some really cool stuff around like combat sports. Mm-hmm. And we initially came together on 2 initiatives. We actually still started working with Tommy, and we have a patented fantasy football platform that really, really amazing. We were going to look to deploy, and then the laws changed in the U.S., and we had to hold off on deployment, and it was a whole crazy thing around, gambling engines and all that stuff.
Sure.
So at the same time we were doing that, the other passion we had was legalized cannabis. And being a former lawyer, I always was so fascinated with the legalization initiatives because it was just it's this evolving industry and this unique plant, and now you're dealing with medicine and recreational, and so really fell in love with it. At the time, Tommy was the CTO for Weed Maps, so we really got a lot of experience understanding the California market and the craziness that it was. And then I took a trip socially to Canada in 2015 and fell in love with Vancouver, but more than that, I also met the love of my life there, which is pretty cool as well. But I also looked at this amazing program that had unfolded in Canada under the legal infrastructure. And they were, for the first time, we were seeing a country adopt countrywide industrial licensed producers for medical cannabis, right?
Yep.
And, for technology companies building enterprise software, your number one target market is an enterprise. You got to have the enterprise first. And so, because that's the whole point of it. And so when we started really looking at the problems in the cannabis industry, we knew that one of the biggest problems we were going to run into, coming from the nascent, fun, kind of crazy Wild West cowboy market of California, is taking that industry and marrying it with modern medicine and sophisticated medicine, and marrying it with the Fortune 500 distribution for consumer packaged goods. And so we knew that you had to have a landscape that wasn't as crazy terrain as we were seeing in California. Go to Canada, build it up there, and you get some large implementation. So that's what we decided to do in 2016. We started an initial startup up there, and then it evolved into getting introduced to some guys that wanted to put some money behind some blockchain initiatives. We really got excited about what Hyperledger specifically could do for a data protection when married to an enterprise solution. And away we went. Blockstrain was born, which eventually then converted into Trutrace Technologies, because we just evolved at what we do, and the platform StrainSecure then evolved, and it's been amazing ever since.
Well, let's talk about Canada. On June 14th, you guys moved up from the TSX to the CSC, and then quickly followed that news on June 17th about your Shoppers Drug Mart program using StrainSecure, and more recent news about this program on July 7th. Can you give us details on the program with Shoppers Drug Mart?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the core of what we were building, everything was initially about genetic identification. One of the problems we ran into in the U.S., the concept behind weed maps was always pretty simple, right? Where do you find your cannabis? Find your weed, right? That was the whole basis. And the problem that we ran into was it's difficult to do that. You can find the dispensary, you can find the product lines, the inventory, but when you show up, the product wasn't actually what it says it was, because there's horse trading going on, and it's just the nature of the way that the industry has evolved. So we knew that genetic identification was kind of was the key to identifying product. And initially we looked at this from, hey, by the way, have you ever met a cannabis grower that didn't grow the best stuff, right? And so we knew that blockchain could bring some level of IP protection for breeders and cultivators. So that was where we tackled this thing at first. And what ended up happening is we got introduced to Shoppers Drug Mart through our lead client, WeedMD, which is a medical licensed producer in Canada, and one of the suppliers to Shoppers. And Shoppers, we sat down with the vice president of Shoppers, and they said, look, we have a problem. And the problem is that in the pharmacy industry, we're used to being able to scan the barcode on the side of a pharmaceutical product, pull up the drug information number or the NDC number in the U.S. We get everything related to that product. And as pharmacists, we are tasked with needing to have a greater level of understanding of medicine than anyone else in the medical profession, like beyond doctors, beyond nurse practitioners. Like, pharmacists know more about medicine than anybody else, and they have since the history of mankind, right? So we really said, oh, wow, this is a different perspective. And what we really then looked at is saying, hey, not only do we want to identify this product, but we need to validate this product, and we need to validate it through the supply chain and through a larger traceability solution like ours provides that level of visibility. And so what we did with Shoppers is basically leveraging our platform, our StrainSecure platform, which takes all aggregated product data, everything from motion, movement, inventory, and more specifically, the chemical and microbiological as well as the genetic data associated to every single batch. We can lock it into an immutable solution. We can track it through a blockchain-enabled supply chain solution. And we're an open platform, and we play nicely with everybody in the sandbox. So we're not a seed to sales system because we don't want to be. Let them do daily reporting, but we can plug in and we can power that. So they're reporting on validated product data rather than what they're reporting on now, which is just strain names that are given to them by the producers. In addition to that, we knew that the lab infrastructure was antiquated, right? A lot of manual paperwork and processes. So we knew we could amplify and rapidly expedite that. And at the end of the day, with your Shoppers Drug Mart, you have a unique problem that most companies don't have. You're not really a licensed producer for cannabis. You're a licensed distributor for cannabis, right? So you have a multitude of suppliers that are sending you product that you need to be able to manage, oversee, and control from a quality perspective before you put it in the hands of your patients. And all of these companies live on disparate systems. They don't talk to one another because they're all competitors. They're highly competitive. They test with different labs that don't talk to each other because they're competitive. They run on different ERP systems or seed to sale platforms that are all competitive, right? So we knew we could be the glue that helped all of this communicate better together. And so we kicked this initiative off with shoppers, and we just announced completion. Last week, we completed phase 1, and Deloitte Canada is joining us for phase 2. So we're really excited. They're going to be helping with project management support, helping deploy and scale what we're looking to do with shoppers. And yeah, man, at the end of the day, once we can validly identify product and secure the supply chain side of this thing, now we can build efficacy studies. Now we can build real trust for medical, right? Now we can build, that validated product can go into clinical trial programs and ERP systems and EMR solutions, electronic medical records, and really just exciting stuff when we start linking that data into the larger cannabis industry, and hopefully be able to build a higher level of trust for these other jurisdictions. Wink, wink, U.S., come on.
Yes.
And get them to move the initiative forward faster.
Well, I think that you're in the right place talking about building trust. It's definitely important. We do other podcasts here at Publicly Traded Podcasts. One's focused on healthcare and another on technology. And you guys are definitely operating in both of those spaces as well. But your focus on cannabis, I think, puts you in a marketplace that obviously there's going to be a demand for your technology. And I think that you having Shoppers Drug Mart there to pilot this program and get it out there really helps build that trust, not only with the pharmacists and the providers, but with the end users, the patients. If you could please, Mr. Galarza, talk about what building that transparency and accountability means in terms of large-scale industry adoption of your technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really glad you bring that up. I mean, one of the things that we look at is data powers intelligence, and intelligence can power everything from actuarial models for insurance to settlement of medical insurance claims to patient identification, risk-based assessments of medical producers. Are they really producing the right product? We can help build, with the validity to be able to have companies showcase they're doing good work. And all of that is necessary for this industry to actually really scale into what we would want to see from a global perspective. And one of the issues in the cannabis industry at large, and it's one of the things that shoppers brought to our attention, is the reason we don't see these problems in pharmaceuticals, and by the way, we still see plenty of supply chain problems in pharmaceuticals that we can also tackle.
Sure do.
We do still see, patent formulations, and so you're not going to see massive deviation away from those formulations because there's a risk of intellectual property loss, right? If you have a patent on a particular formulation, if you deviate from that formulation, you can lose the patent rights, right? Correct. As a pharma company, you're not going to do that. And in cannabis, there is no IP protection, number one. Number two, you're dealing with plants, so there's potentially a deviation in chemical expression, but it doesn't change the genetic output. So if you really are growing your, Girl Scout cookie or whatever you want to call it, and it is really from the same lineage, yes, there may be some deviation because of various factors, but it's all about just to be able to inform the market, right? That's all the medical industry wants. They want information. They want, it's the idea of kind of informed consent. You want to be able to understand what you're taking. And the reality is that, and I think that we're starting to see understanding that this is going to have to change, because the bigger companies that are out there, your Fortune 500 companies, I mean, there is really only one company in the world that's a Fortune 500 company that's really put its hand up and actively gotten in the cannabis space, and it's Shoppers, i.e. Loblaws, which is our client. You've seen Constellation and a few others, Molson and others, start to dip their toes, but they're doing it very lightly, right? I'm going to put my money in the canopy. I'm going to do it from an external. I'm not doing, we're doing it as a little side project. We're exploring initiatives, or we're CVS, and we're going to start, looking to allow CBD to be put on our shelves in the U.S., hemp-derived CBD. So you're starting to see companies move in that direction. They certainly want to, but the hesitation is all around these product issues, around the CannTrust issues and Bonafide issues, which have highlighted some of the issues around, when you have manual processes and paperwork and not regressive data. When you don't have good data systems, it becomes a problem. And so, I think this is all about the maturity of this industry. And the other reality is, and this is something that I think a lot of people don't necessarily point out, is as of today, you were looking at 1%, 2%, 3% of the physicians and practitioners prescribing cannabis in Canada, as an example. Those numbers are not high enough. We need a real medical industry behind the medical cannabis push, and so we're trying to create that bridge that you can have these doctors go, hey, look, there's validated product, there's efficacy studies based upon it. all of the data feedback, patient feedback, all that on these products are linked to validated product. Yeah, cool. Okay, I'm comfortable, prescribing this to a patient with these particular conditions because we now have historical records that are linked to validated product, and that's really our big key. Is once we can build that data point and secure it and do it with a large big box pharmacy like Shoppers Drug Mart, now we're in a position to be able to hopefully proliferate what this thing can do at a larger scale.
Trutrace Technologies Inc. is the company that we're highlighting today. They trade on the CSE under the ticker symbol TTT. They're also on the OTC QB under the ticker symbol TTTSF. Speaking of the OTC QB, you guys recently moved up on July 30th and uplisted to become fully reporting in the United States. How do you see this improving your company in the U.S. market and beyond?
As for the OTC QB, one of the things that we're proud of, when you work with a company like Shoppers Drug Mart and you work with a company like Deloitte, these are not things that happen by accident, right? There's a process to being able to be the kind of company that can get across their due diligence related to doing business with them. The OTC QB is very similar, right? There is a process for being able to say, you are taking the right steps, you're going down the right road, there's a certain amount of protocol. Yes, it does open up a larger potential market for us in terms of investment, but more than that, it's being able to showcase that in a world where you're dealing with a lot of shenanigans, which let's just say the micro-cap public market oftentimes has, a lot way more so in the U.S. than in Canada. Well, all we can do as a company is do the best we can to try to do the right things, right? And that means when you make a mistake, you adjust. When you make the wrong hire, you adjust. You don't look backwards and just consistently live in that past. We were initially a small micro-cap pink sheet company. You're going to make mistakes along the way. Allow yourself to make those mistakes and grow from them. And then in turn, the nice thing about the OTCQB is that they're making sure that you're moving in the right direction and not making the same kind of junior mistakes that you make as a small company. It's just a natural maturity of how this business can and should operate, especially when we're dealing with something as important as transparency and trust and product data and integrity. I mean, it really it does speak to who we are as a company.
Do you have any final thoughts for our Cannabis Currency listeners and your investors?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think the most important thing is if you start taking a look at, we saw 2 releases come out today on the heels of this Shoppers Deloitte announcement. And obviously it's a rough day in the market. So, unfortunately, that's just nobody saw the New York Stock Exchange doing what's doing the Dow, and everything's just kind of crazy. It's one of those crazy days, right? But the reality of it is that we've had 2 really great companies, WeedMD and Harvest One, United Greenery, step up and say they're excited about this initiative we're moving Shoppers. And they're not the only ones. We've got Zenabis, Flower we've announced as well. We've got additional partners that are coming online. Obviously, we've seen the same with Deloitte. We have third-party companies, including analytical labs like A&L, Molecular Science Corp, StrainPrint, which does some phenomenal crowdsourced analytical data related to product feedback that we're hoping to link our system into, so we can have great feedback on validated product as part of what we're building and implementing and rolling out. I think the biggest thing is that this is an encouraging moment for our industry. I know it's been bumpy for the public company folks that maybe didn't get along with the huge rise, or even if they did, took advantage of the big weed boom of 2016, 2017, are feeling a little bit strained right now by where the market's at. This is a young industry. We're taking the right steps. We're taking the right initiatives. We're definitely a part of that, which we're excited and thrilled to be. Shoppers is taking the leadership role. Deloitte's taking the leadership role. We're really moving the needle on this thing, and that's got to be really encouraging for us all, that are part of this, and proud to be a part of this, and excited about it, and I believe that all of these steps are going to support. We have a lot of supporters in the U.S. 85% of the U.S. is supportive of medical cannabis legalization. I think 65% on rec, but let's get medical fixed first. Let's focus medical. Let's get medical across the board. Let's get medicine in the hands of these patients that need it across the U.S. Do it safely. Do it at the same levels of protocols we see today. we would love to be in business with Walgreens and CVS's, just like we are with Shoppers at some point soon. So we're encouraged, we're happy and excited to see where we're going, and really appreciate the time today. It's been great. I know I talk a lot, but we're excited. This is all my enthusiasm that makes me talk this much.
Well, I do appreciate you coming on today, Robert. It's been great hearing you speak. I think your enthusiasm shines through. I believe your company's in the right place, right time. Folks, go check them out. Again, they're on the CSC under the ticker symbol TTT, and they're on the OTC QB under the ticker symbol TTTSF. And in my opinion, this is a great long-term investment with the technology and initiatives that they have going forward. So, Mr. Galarza, I do thank you for your time, and hopefully you'll come back on in 60 or 90 days and give us an update about your company. Thanks again.
I'm looking forward to it.
This audio interview was entirely sponsored and produced by Publicly Traded Podcasts, which is responsible for the content. The opinions and information provided in this audio interview are those of the guests and those of the respective companies that they represent, and do not necessarily reflect those of the team or management of Publicly Traded Podcasts. All listeners of this audio interview are encouraged to do their due diligence and research when planning and executing investment strategies. We strongly recommend seeking the assistance of an investment professional. The guests interviewed may have paid for an extended audio distribution package and are in no way affiliated with Publicly Traded Podcasts or their audio distribution partners.